Welcome to Q&A Selling Online, with answers to questions about creating an online empire, promoting products, or building a brand. Your host, private label and e-commerce entrepreneur, Quinn Amorm.
Welcome back to the show, my friends. Today we have with us a recession expert, traction implementer, a speaker, and the best-selling author of Rock the Recession. He coaches high-growth leadership teams across the United States and implements the Entrepreneurial Operating System. He was also a valedictorian of his graduating class with the highest GPA ever in the history of Shaker Heights High School. And he was voted the next Bill Gates and the least likely to lose his virginity. We have with us Jonathan Slane. Jonathan, how's it going?
How's it going? Thanks for having me on the show, dude. Really great to be here.
Oh, man, it's a pleasure to have you here. And I want to start with your high school mates. Did they get it right about Bill Gates and your virginity?
Well, like we were talking about before we hit record here, I have a 7 and a 9-year-old, so yes to the virginity piece, and then working on the next Bill Gates piece right now.
Oh, cool. You also have, you are a best-selling book, which is Rock the Recession, and it came out at the perfect time, from what I believe, and this was towards the end of 2019, and now we're going through COVID, so I mean there was like perfect timing for your book. Was it? Of course, it wasn't done on purpose because you didn't know this was happening.
Yeah, Quinn, I think the idea here is that in September of 2019, when we released the book, Paul and I, my co-author, we were sure that there would be a recession in 2020. Did many shows, was on Fox talking about that, but thought it was for much different reasons. Obviously, Paul and I didn't predict that we would have the first pandemic virus that we've had in 100 years. But when we were looking at the fundamentals in the economy, we did see warning signs, and so thought we would have a recession in 2020. That's why we put the book out in September of 19, so that companies, whether they're small entrepreneurs that are just getting going or, multi-billion-dollar corporations, would have a roadmap for how do you look forward to a recession. Paul and I didn't want to just regurgitate the conventional wisdom on recessions, which is just fire everybody and cut all your expenses and try to survive. We wanted to add something new to the conversation about how you could actually rock the recession and thrive in the great opportunities that a downturn brings.
So why do you think I should look forward to the next recession? Is there like looking for opportunity in the chaos? Is that it?
Well, there's a lot of specific pieces, but recessions come around once every 7 to 10 years since World War II in the U.S. And so they don't happen often. Obviously, it's been about a decade since the Great Recession in the United States. And so here we are again, about 10 years later with this opportunity. The thought, though, is that it's part that there are opportunities in the chaos, but it's also, 3 months ago, everybody that I was talking to that owned a business was talking about how tough it was to find good people, right? Unemployment was at record lows. And so, couldn't find talent. There were no A players available to hire or to work with. And now fast forward a few short months, and we've got record unemployment the other way. We've got 40 million people recently unemployed in the U.S., and so that means there are a lot of A players. And so I think for the companies that can pounce right now, that can hire that top talent, there's lots of huge opportunities for them to be big winners coming out of this recession as we recover.
Absolutely. I know earlier you mentioned how you were interviewed by Fox Business. I also saw that you were like Yahoo Finance and Forbes and all those. Did they approach you when this happened and your book came out?
So those drops were when the book came out. We did a publicity tour to announce the book and to talk about it on different talk shows and events. At this point, I think it's probably time for another round of interviews so that we can talk through how does it change for a coronavirus recession. Usually with a recession, you've got some time. The economy slowly goes into a recession. This is a very unique situation, obviously, where we just dropped right into it. right? It's like one day the bottom falls out.
Yeah.
All of a sudden we're forced to shelter in place at home. And so we dropped right down into recession without any warning. And now, I one thing I may have screwed up is that probably should have called the book Dodge the Depression instead of Rock the Recession. I really think that this one is going to actually be a much deeper economic disturbance, and we're not just going to bounce right out of it. And so not saying that to be Chicken Little, not saying it to create fear, but for the audience, I think it's just we need to get our heads around that the economy isn't just going to turn back on like a faucet.
Mm-hmm.
It is going to slowly have to build pressure back up to get back to where we were back in January of this year.
Yeah, I see that people probably believe that it is like the faucet. Okay, because I often hear people ask, so is Corona over? Can we just go back to normal? And deep down, I know it's not going to be like that. You're not going to just open it and go back to normal.
Yeah, so maybe it's not going to be like a light switch. I think that's what I meant to say. You're not just going to flip it and all of a sudden it comes right back on.
Mm-hmm.
It could be more like a faucet where, it starts as a trickle and then it comes back more and more. The reason I bring it up, one of the things we talk about is in the book is the phases of grief. So, right, I think the audience, you may have heard of this model before, but when we have a new shocking event happen, we experience it in several phases of grief. So the first thing is there's shock, and then there's disbelief, and then we work through our anger at the situation, and then ultimately we get to bargaining and acceptance of the new normal.
Yes.
And right now, most of the people I talk to are still in those earlier phases of grief. So they're still, can't believe what's going on. And every day it seems like, it gets worse before it gets better. Right now when we're recording this, we're in the middle of the riots and the protests that are going on. And so people, I don't think have had time to process, to even get used to the new normal, and to bargain with how that's going to be and then accept that there will be a new normal. It's easier to just be pissed off about the situation, to be angry, and maybe not face up to the fact that we are going to have to wear masks for a while. We are going to have to wait for a vaccine to be developed. We are going to have to wait until we build up immunity in the population. So I think the audience has probably heard this from plenty of places. What I'm more excited to talk to is in the interim, if you are a business owner or leader, how can you prepare to rock this recession that we're all in?
You know what? I think you missed one of the stages there, Jonathan, the conspiracy stage.
Exactly. Yeah.
Because that seems to be the new trend, that everything that comes out, there's always a conspiracy around it. And I mean, it could be true, but it also could just be a conspiracy, how the thing started and all that. And that comes before the anger, right?
Correct. Yeah, no, I like that. I think we need to update that, the model to include that piece. I think for the audience, though, there's so if you're, wondering, if you're just a beginning entrepreneur, for example, and you haven't gotten into your first business, but recently you lost your main job, or you really want to focus on your side hustle now and make it your main hustle since we are in a recession. It's thinking about, can you talk to the bank and let them know what kind of assets or equipment you'd like to buy? Because right now, there are great deals available. So for example, if you've always wanted to start a restaurant, I am confident that there will be plenty of opportunities to start a restaurant for very cheap and to take advantage of what's coming and to really think through how you can reimagine a restaurant in a way that is COVID friendly, for example. So how can you focus more on touchless delivery, on what the market is going to want from a takeout experience going forward? Because I don't think it's just going to bounce right back.
Exactly.
And so I think it's being opportunistic about that. But then if you want to start a business where, let's say you want to start a brewery, and so you need some of those big expensive stainless steel tanks, then it's having the conversations with the bank to let them know the kind of equipment you're interested in, so that when they do have to foreclose on another business that has those, that they can call you and say, hey, Gwen, we know that you're looking to start this kind of business. If you can send us a cashier's check, then the tanks will be yours. Because what I do know from the last recession is banks don't want to own big, heavy pieces of equipment. They don't want to store it. They don't want to have to get it appraised. They don't want to have an auctioneer sell it and then they pay the commission. It's a big pain. That's not the business banks are in. So if you're smart now, if you can let the banks know what type of equipment you're interested in, then they will call you and give you great deals. And so I think that's one very tactical thing that business owners can do to get ready for this next recession.
Man, that's fantastic advice, and something that I actually hadn't thought of. But I mean, it's something that I got to start looking into, because I try to focus more on the online side of things. But I know that right now, the physical locations, the retail spaces, are like restaurants, are the ones that are having the major difficulties. And like you said, taking advantage of this situation is not really taking advantage of the people, right? Because if there is a foreclosure, there is a foreclosure, right? You can take advantage of that situation. You're not taking advantage of the person. Just making that part clear, so the people listening to know that that's not what we're talking about here.
Well, and I know but before we start, we were talking about how, and I don't know if the audience, I know most of the audience probably is listening to us while they're on the treadmill, but if they want to check out the video, then I was showing you how, for me, part of the recession plan was to flip my guest bedroom into a production studio. That helps me with all of my consulting gigs and all of my podcasts that I'm filming. And so I'm showing a live feed right now of what the studio looks like. But for me, a lot of this equipment I was able to get for relatively cheap, because I know that there are a lot of other people that don't need equipment right now that want to sell it. And so again, I think if the audience is on top of it, that's one of the benefits that comes in a recession. So we talked through, you can hire people now that weren't available just a few months ago. And also you can get cheap assets. And I think the other one I wanted to hit on before we move on, Quinn, is just, this recession could not have come at a worse time for baby boomers. So I think a lot of baby boomers were just about to retire. The economy was doing so well that they wanted to hang on for one more year, maybe 2 more years, and bank a little bit more in their retirement. And then boom, this happens, the bottom falls out. And now I think that a lot of boomers will probably just want to sell their business as opposed to having to go through a whole nother economic cycle. I don't know if they'll want to dig in and spend the next 3 to 7 years rebuilding their business. So the opportunity for the audience is, if you have boomer friends that own businesses, is there a way for you to buy that company from them, or to partner with them, or to take it over time? It doesn't have to be a huge cash outlay. But if you have a friend that has built a great online business like you have, and maybe they don't want to keep supporting it, then over time, you could work your way into owning that business. I think a lot of deals like that are going to be made here in the next 6 to 18 months to give people the opportunity to retire.
I think you hit the nail on the head, and about the 1 more year, because my mom was in retirement stage, and she wants to put in 1 more year. And that's exactly it, right? So it was supposed to be the last year, and it didn't work that way. But anyway, before you mentioned how about your studio, and for those of you that are not watching, Jonathan's studio made me feel like such an amateur, because that is like a perfect setup, and what he has done there is like, I'm envious of it. I wish I was that savvy to have all that stuff. But anyway, Jonathan, I mentioned earlier in the interview, in the intro, about the Entrepreneurial Operating System. What exactly is this technique? You're an expert in that. That's what it's called. Just a different name for it too. What is it?
Yeah, so it's a system of doing strategic planning for your company, whether you're just starting out, or you're $1 million company, or a $5 million or a $500 million business. Every quarter, you're getting together with your leadership team and just thinking through where you want to take the company. So what are your core values? What's your core focus as a company? What's your 10-year target, your 3-year picture to get there, the 1-year plan goals that you have, and what are you going to do this quarter? I just call it rocks. What rocks are you going to accomplish to move yourself towards making that 1-year plan come to fruition, bringing that 3-year picture into focus, and making sure that you hit your 10-year target? And you can do this on your own if you're just starting out. And there's a book, Traction by Gino Wickman, that I recommend is a great starting point. And then as your company grows, if you want to hire a consultant like me that can come in and help give perspective, since I'm helping 20 different companies through the process at any given time, then that's cool too. But really, for companies that are having a tough time in this recession, that aren't dodging the downturn, but having a hard time, I think that's a great starting point, is to use this downturn to reevaluate the company, to get yourself core values, and then to figure out how you can rock the recovery. So if you're not able to rock the recession, then at least use this time to get your head right and rock the recovery. And remember that in recessions, in depressions, lots of great companies get started. So I think that's part of the message too. I was just looking in prep for our show here. I was looking at a list of companies that started in the last recession. It's like Spotify, Square, Facebook right after the Great Recession, Uber. A lot of great companies can turn those lemons into lemonade. So hopefully we've got people in the audience that are working on the same.
And is it possible to write a recession plan and maybe a recovery plan? So, if you've been hit strong by the recession, should you have a plan ready for when the tap gets turned back on? Should you have a plan ready, and kind of what should be in that plan?
Yeah, what I'm thinking right now is that everybody should have an emergency brake, is what I call it. So before you can rock the recession, before you can hit the accelerator and go 100 miles an hour, then I would always have your emergency brake in case you get up to speed and it's not working. You want to know that you have that in place. So what that looks like to me, and we lay all this out in the book, is that you've got 4 tiers. And so if you're a business and you're used to doing $1 million a year in revenue, and you start to see your revenue slide to 900,000, then you would activate tier 1 of your emergency brake plan. What would be the expenses you would cut? Who would be the people that you would free up from the company in order to make sure that you can survive and break even? If you saw your revenue sliding to 800,000, what would be the additional expenses you'd cut, and who would be the people you'd free up? And you want to have that down to 4 different layers, with that tier 4 being really, maybe it's you were $1 million company and the smallest you can imagine is getting down to 200,000, and that would require you and one other person from your team to stay on. It's just easier to have that plan put together in the cool, rational light of day than in the heat of the night when things get emotional. It's a lot easier to pivot to your plan, to calmly walk over and break the glass and to take your plan out and execute it, rather than trying to have to put that plan together when you've got people crying at your door because they're not sure if they're going to be the next one to get fired, and they're scared and they're worried.
Yeah, I really like that approach. And, you mentioned how sometimes we have to free up people from the business, and so the business will survive. A lot of people, when they hear such thing being said, they think, well, you're all about the money, you're not about the people. But I often refer them to, there was a scene in the Mad Max movie. I don't know if you know the Mad Max movie, but there was a guy that was handcuffed to a motorcycle that was burning. And he said, you either cut your arm off or basically you die. And that's what it is, right? Because if you try to do it all and without cutting the costs and cutting some people, the whole business can implode. And now everybody is out. It's not just the little few, right? So
yeah, and I hope that the pain of going through this exercise will make it so that the audience never gets to tier 4, because you'll fight like hell to make sure that you never have to do it. But you need to have a plan. And look, when we were writing the book, we were reading all the academic research that's been written on recessions. And one of the studies that I really love showed that your people that work for you, your employees, want to know what the plan is. And they don't trust leaders that don't have a plan. Mm-hmm. And they actually do better, even if the plan is negative. So even if you tell your employees, which I don't think a lot of leaders do because they're scared to say, hey, you know what, Quinn? If we ever get down to 500,000 in revenue, then we're going to have to free you up. The business at that level wouldn't be able to support your position. Leaders don't want to say that because they're worried that people will then just quit or they'll be angry. But, being able to have that conversation then lets you know that at least I'm thinking about the future and that I have a plan and that I'm going to fight like hell to make sure we never get there. But if we do, that I'll be transparent with you and that I'll be authentic. And now you can go home and have a conversation with your spouse to let them know, hey, listen, if our company got to half its size, I wouldn't have a role there. And so we need to have a backup plan for us. And I know that that's a tough conversation to have, but I think it's much better than, hey, you know what, Quinn, unfortunately, today's your last day because we just can't afford to have you anymore. So really appreciate everything you've done for us. I wish it wasn't this way, but good luck. Yeah. So I think you just have to ask yourself what you want for your employees, what the most loving thing is that you can do. And if you feel that it's just to fire them the same day that you have to without any heads up, then that's your business as a leader. What I'm trying to get across the audience, though, is having that tough conversation up front aligns everybody so that you can make sure that you never get to that point, if at all possible.
Yeah, I love it. The transparency, the honesty, and giving them the heads up, not just, hey, by the way, it's today that you're done, right? It's okay. Yeah. There's a good chance that within the next few weeks, so they can prepare. Now, Jonathan, is there such thing as being recession proof?
For sure. There are definitely, if we think through different industries that do well in recessions and industries that get crushed, we can go back and look at the data we have from the Great Recession, for example. So industries that did not do well in the Great Recession, travel and tourism, not a good place to be positioned in a recession. Jewelry stores, also not a great place to be positioned in a recession. But if you look on the other side of the ledger, guns and ammo tend to do very well in recessions. If you look at basic industries, so grocery stores do well in recessions. Veterinary clinics. So might not think about it, but people still pay for their pets regardless of what's going on in a downturn. And then right now, I think with coronavirus, I was just looking at statistics. Everybody's adopting a dog right now. Everybody's adopting cats. Shelters are at record lows, I believe, with how many pets they have in inventory, because people want the safety and the comfort of having an animal at home with them right now. And I think people are just bored. They need something to do at home. So if you slow down, my point, Quinn, is that if you slow down and you think through what industries are going to get a tailwind because of coronavirus, then I think you can position yourself to rock the recession. Also, I was reading, another weird one is tortilla manufacturing. So apparently tortillas are cheap food. They're very popular right now. So if you can somehow figure out a way to help build the machinery that tortilla companies need, or to help them build their facilities, or to train the workers that they have, those can all be very nice niche businesses that will have a tailwind that will make it easier for you instead of trying to fight into the headwinds that you're facing if you're trying to sell to retail right now. Bricks and mortar, very tough place to be positioned right now. I don't think that's going to come back very soon. Restaurants, very tough. I think, again, when I said earlier that I should have called the Dodge the Depression, I think the difference between a recession and depression is, listen, a depression alters the social fabric. And so I think what we're seeing right now is that people aren't just going to go back to restaurants in the same way. I think they're going to be skittish about it for quite a long time. So knowing that, how can you position yourself as an entrepreneur?
Mm-hmm. And do you think the coronavirus is here to stay for a little bit longer? Is this almost over? Do you have any opinion on that?
Yeah, unfortunately, I think it's a long time. So we're filming right now, or we're recording this in June of 2020. I think it'll be at least a year until we really get to a new normal. I think it's going to take at least that long for us to start to have a vaccine available. And then even once we do have a vaccine, I think through the logistics of getting 8 billion people to have the vaccine, that's going to be complicated. It's not just vaccinating the U.S., but we have to really vaccinate a lot of the entire world population. So, this vaccine will have to be something that doesn't have to be refrigerated. It'll have to be something that will be easy to ingest. And so this is a big issue that we're going to be facing for a while, unfortunately.
And I think there's going to be a lot of fight to receive the vaccine, since that conspiracy that Bill Gates has microchips into the vaccine that's going to there's going to be a lot of people that are not going to want it because of that. I'm not saying that it's true or not true. I don't know, but I believe there's going to be a lot of pushback from some people that don't want to get it too.
I'm sure that there will be, and I think that we're so for the audience though. The first step for anybody listening to us is really to just benchmark where you stand. So you want to know, you want to assess versus everyone else out there how well positioned you are for this recession. And so Paul and I put up a website at recession.com, and yes, that really is our website. But there we've got a quick 20-question survey, and it'll give you a recession readiness score from 0 to 100. And so you can know how ready you are for the COVID recession. And it's free, so I should mention that too. But we've collected 1,500 responses so far, and we're seeing an average score of 62. So if the audience wants to go take that at recession.com, if you get over a 62, you're doing better than average, and lower than 62, like we talked about earlier, I would start with getting that book Traction, and my book, of course, and then start there with using those to help you guide getting yourself personally ready for the recession as well as your company.
And you know what? I checked your website earlier, and I mean, it blew my mind. You have recession.com. Sorry. So recession.com was either a perfect find for you or a big investment.
It was an investment.
Yes. Okay.
It was 2 years ago that Paul and I were working on the book. And so we were able we bought recession.com as well as recessionproof.com.
Nice. Did it get to 6 figures deal or?
No, it was not a 6 figures deal.
And by the way, I love the header on your website. That video header, that's fantastic. Cool. And then
thank you.
Through the middle of the page, I was actually playing a little bit. There's this floating beach ball over the audience, and I can move it with the mouse.
So we want it to be like a rock concert because we called it Rock the Recession. And also, I think, the thing is that this topic is tough. I mean, talking about recessions is a tough topic. So we also wanted to have some fun with it. We wanted to bring some levity. So hopefully when people see the site, brings them some joy, a little bit of a smile, because we don't want it to be all depressing. It's not about how you could cut and fire people just to survive. We really want people to hear that message of, use this as an opportunity to thrive. There has never been a better time to be an entrepreneur. There are so many different ways to reimagine the world. As we move in with your specialty of helping out, with selling online, I think you're ideally positioned, and that the audience, I need your help figuring that out because it is such a crowded marketplace. So I'm curious to know just what's your take on all this as we figure out how to sell better online and just cut through the noise right now.
Jonathan, right now, online world is at a position where it's better than ever because of the coronavirus. There's a lot of people that were forced to start shopping online. Yeah. So not only we had huge increases in certain categories, for those who were selling toilet paper online a couple of months ago, it was fantastic. But the future is very promising too, because now the people that were forced to shop online for the last few months may like it and see how easy it is. And now with technology these days, everything is a click of a button and then it gets delivered to your door the next day. Yeah. So the baby boomers that you mentioned earlier, not all of them were shopping online, and now they are. And they
I totally with you. I think, it takes 21 days to make a habit. And so we're just getting used to buying everything online. I mean, the only store I've been to has really been a grocery store. And we've been exploring, I read that that's ticking up too, where more and more people are buying groceries online. And so I think that's going to be a huge business as well, is the online grocery stuff. Yeah. I just think it's going to really grow. I think that would be big. I don't know what you've seen on that, if anything.
There's a shopping app and site that I personally use here, Instacart, and there's no advertising for them, but Instacart as of right now, here where I am, we get same day delivery of your groceries. So you pick what you want. They go to the store that you want. They buy it for you and drop it at your door, and that's it. So all the payment is done through the app. It's like Uber for grocery shopping. It's exactly that. And I get same day delivery here. So I mean, it's so easy. And for for a $20 tip, it's I mean, it's a no-brainer. I just keep doing it. And as you said earlier, it takes sometimes 21 days to make a habit. It also could be done 21 days or a great experience. Mm-hmm. So if you have a great experience the first time, like, oh man, I'm going back. So that can create a habit, is because you keep getting good experiences. So yeah, there is, like you said, there's a lot of noise in the online world because there's a lot of strong brands. There's a lot of startup brands. There's millions of sellers. A lot of them selling the a Me Too product, like the same thing with a different brand.
Right.
And I think that's the distinction right there, is not having the Me Too product, kind of building a brand around it and not just looking for today's sales, looking for tomorrow. That's what kind of is going to differentiate everybody.
Yeah, I think, and with that point, something I wanted to mention earlier is just that for the audience that is still listening to us and wondering, isn't it too late for this recession planning stuff? I do think we're probably going to see a second wave of the coronavirus. I'm worried about the fact that with the protests, for example, we're getting so many people together in close proximity. I'm watching the videos. Not everybody's wearing a mask in those situations. So I do think that it's likely, or in the fall when more people are indoors again, I think we could see a second wave there. But I think for the entrepreneurs in the audience, it's just thinking through, look, the first time, most of us did not have a recession plan. I'm a recession expert, so I had one, but very few people that I talk to have the recession plan. But everybody who's listening to this can get one for the next wave of the coronavirus. And then even if you're, shaking your head and you don't agree with me on that, there's a lot of non-economic recessions, Quinn. I mean, you've been in business for a while, so you know this, but if your biggest customer leaves, you're in a recession. Or if your best couple employees leave and they go start a competing business, you're in a recession. Or if you find out somebody embezzled money from you, that'll probably put you in a recession too. So all of those are non-economic reasons for everybody to just have their recession plan, because the recession plan is the same regardless of what puts you into the recession.
Absolutely. So, Jonathan, before I let you go, there's one more thing I want to know. How does one get an awesome testimonial from Peter Diamandis on the book?
So Peter actually runs a group for entrepreneurs and leaders. And so Paul, my co-author, is part of that group. Yeah. And so every year they do a big conference, and they do a lot of virtual events as well. And so through that, Paul got to know Peter. And when we finished the book and sent him the advanced copy, that's what we got back from him.
Wow. Nice. That's such a social proof right there.
Well, we were so jacked up about it that we put it on the cover, which I know is unusual. But Paul and I were so thankful that he took the time and gave it to us that we couldn't help ourselves.
I would have done the same. No doubt. It's social proof. Yeah. And I learned from human behavior towards purchasing. Social proof is very important, right?
Agreed.
So, Jonathan, for people that want to hear more about you and deal with you besides recession.com, that one is very easy. Is there any other place you wanted to check out?
No, I think all my contact info is on recession.com. My email address is just jonathan@recession.com. So that's the best way to get in touch with me. If they want to take a look at the consulting side of what I do in the traction piece, that's at autobahnconsultants.com. But all of that's also available through recession.com as well. And then if the audience wants to grab a copy of our workbook or other materials, that's all on recession.com. And I'm happy to send you a coupon code we can put in the show notes for people that also want to do that and get a few bucks off.
Will do. And so for everybody listening, I'll have it out in the show notes. And of course, for those that won't check the show notes, it's very easy to remember. It's recession.com and you'll get everything there. Jonathan, thank you so much for the chat today. It was a pleasure having you here.
Thanks for having me. Rock on.
Rock on.